Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming to our youth forum for the Providence mayoral candidates. My name is Kente, and I am the chair of the Board of Young Voices. Now, for the past 2 months, I've been working on a committee of youth from the Providence Student Union and from Young Voices to organize this event. This youth-led forum is our chance to voice our educational opinions and priorities to our city's next mayor. We are so happy to have the next mayor of our great capital engage with us about how to improve our educational system and to become more student-centered and to help better prepare our youth to succeed in the 21st century. Now, before we begin, I would like to thank the candidates for coming. I would also like to thank the Nellie Mae Foundation for sponsoring this event. And I would like to recognize the many youth organizations from across the city who are involved with this event today. AS 222, Breakthrough Providence, College Crusade, Eco Youth, H2O, Inspiring Minds, New Urban Arts, PRISM, Steambox, Urban Debate League, Youth in Action, Youth Build, and Youth Pride. So this is how our forum will be run. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to give their opening statements, and then each candidate will get to answer every single question. And we'll go in the order of a zigzag, so whoever went first will go last the next time. Each candidate will get to give a closing statement at the end, which will be 1.5 minutes. Now, we request of the candidates that you respect your timekeepers and the facilitators, and that you do not make any comments about other candidates, negative or positive, and this will be enforced. We request of the audience that you do not cheer, boo, or clap. If you like what a candidate is saying, you can raise the green paper that we gave you. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce our co-facilitators who are there from PSU and Julian from Young Voices. Thank you.
We'd like to start with the candidate's opening statement. They will have 2 minutes to do this. We will start with candidate Fred Smiley.
All right. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Fred Smiley. I'm a Democratic candidate for mayor here in Providence. I got my start in progressive politics through activism, and so this whole process has been exciting to me. I grew up in Chicago, and when I graduated college, I got involved with a thing called GLSEN, which was the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. We were working hard on bullying and creating gay straight alliances in high schools in Chicago. And that inspired me as a young person myself to see that I could make a difference, that my actions could improve the lives of people, and that kids like me, gay kids going through the school system, didn't have to be harassed like I had been growing up. And it was empowering and inspiring and led to a whole career in progressive politics for myself. And just like the inspiration that I had at 22, today I see the incredible work being done by our young people. I've had a chance to participate in some of PSU's activities, and they remain some of our greatest assets. Providence is full of great assets, but we also have some real challenges ahead. We need to make sure that there are good, high-quality jobs available for you when you graduate. We need to make sure that our streets are safe for you and your families on a daily basis. And we also need to make sure that we have an environment that can react and respond in a world of climate change. What we need in our next mayor is someone with progressive values, but also the practical experience to implement and execute and make a city work for all of us. That's the kind of mayor I'll be. I've spent a career working for progressive causes, from marriage equality to fighting predatory payday lending, to helping secure additional funding for affordable housing throughout our state and in our city. I've run a small business, I've been active in government, I know how to get things done, and from day one on the job, I will make sure that we have a city that we all can be proud of. Thank you.
Well, hi, I'm Christopher Young. I grew up really close by to here. I went to St. Michael's Bishop McVinney Classical High School. I lost my mother at the age of 10 years old, my father at the age of 6. And my mother was a factory worker. My father was a veteran, and he died in a war-related injury. I grew up in this neighborhood, and I went to classical high school, and I went on to college as an orphan. My concerns are what concerns you. Obviously, you care about jobs, and I care about that as well. I believe that there should be practical skills learned in schools that you can use to get a job. And you all care about jobs. To see by a sign of card, who cares about getting a job when you graduate from school? Everyone here cares about that, right? And I do as well, but the truth is that we're not getting these practical job skills in the schools, like training in programming languages like C, C++, C#, AutoCAD, other different programming skills or software skills that you can use to practically get a job. Also, I believe that the city should offer, with the nonprofits, on-the-job training for nonprofits that do revitalization of the neighborhoods. I believe that that's essential. It was Henry David Thoreau who said that this world is but a canvas, and it's only limited by our imagination. If our imagination is stifled by the music programs or the arts programs being cut in the schools, if the canvas is there, but we don't have the tools to paint, if these tools have been taken away from us, then our future is limited. And I think that what we have to do is try our best to create extracurricular activities for students. Like I spoke to several of the kids here, and I agree with them 100%. Also, we have to provide an environment where the schools are kept up, maintained, and fully funded so that the infrastructure of the schools is taken care of as well. So what I'm hoping for is that you allow me to do that for you as Mayor of Providence. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everybody who helped to organize this, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to come as well. My name is Dan Harrah, and I am the rarest of Providence politicians. I am the Republican candidate for mayor of Providence. That means that although one of these gentlemen up here may or may not go through to November, I have a bye in the first round and will be on the November ballot. I bring you a completely different perspective. I grew up in West Warwick, graduated from high school in Warwick, and then went off to Brown University. Did I say something else? And then went off to Brown University, where I have stayed essentially for the last 40 years. I've been on the faculty in the medical school. I'm an MD, I'm a psychiatrist. I've been on the board of directors of several private schools. I have taught both at Brown and at Harvard. And have a great deal of experience in education. But let me preface my remarks, we'll get to the questions later, about what you have to be aware of and afraid of today. Politicians tend to make lots of promises. The question is, can they carry through those promises? And in their life before, have they carried through their promises? You will hear me focus a great deal on money. I know some people don't like to talk about that, but let's face it, every one of these topics that you have today, except one, I think the discipline one, requires money. Other things besides money, but money. And one of the reasons Providence is in such bad shape, including the schools, is the bad management of money over the course of the last 20, 30 years by a series of mayors and city councils. We had a $642 million budget last year. We had $1 million surplus. There is not a great deal of money to do much, and I will focus on that, what we can do, and how to get it during this debate.
Good afternoon, everyone. Is this working? Good afternoon. My name is Jorge Elorza, and I'm a candidate to be your next mayor. Before I get started, I'd like to thank both the Providence Student Union and also Young Voices for pulling this together. I'd like to share with you the reasons why I'm running for mayor. So, I was born and raised here in Providence. My parents are immigrants. They literally crossed the border. We grew up in poverty. It's a traditional story. They worked in the factories. As they worked in the factories, I went through the public schools. I went to classical high school. But to be honest with you, when I was at classical, I was very disengaged, and I can't say that anyone ever fully reached me. I barely graduated from high school. I almost didn't make it. And I got rejected from every university that I applied to. Everyone, URI, Rick Johnson, Wales. And so at 17 years old, it was a matter of, do I work in the factories myself, or do I get my act together? So I started off at CCRI. I spent a year at CCRI. And some of you may have heard of a program called Talent Development at the University of Rhode Island. TD, they call it. It basically helps get inner city kids into college. Because of this program, I got into college. I went from barely graduating from high school to graduating first in my class at the University of Rhode Island in accounting. And what that taught me is that every single child in the schools, regardless of what background they come from, regardless of where they are, every child has the capacity to be great. And I'm running for mayor to make sure that those opportunities that I've had the great privilege to take advantage of are available for that next generation so they can show their greatness as well.
So hi, my name is Lauren Adrian. I'm a Democratic candidate for mayor. I'd like to thank you and actually congratulate you all on this demonstration of leadership in bringing us together. Time's up. And in bringing the community together. My parents immigrated here as well. The second of 8 children. I grew up in Warwick, went to Warwick Men's High School. I was the first in my family to graduate from college. The family didn't have money, so the family had no money. So I earned my way. I paid for my own college tuition and expenses by driving a school bus every morning and afternoon and working at Kente in the summer. I went on from URI to Harvard Business School and graduated from there with my MBA. And I've had a career in business and community leadership over the course of the last 30 years. I believe in a life that's a portfolio, a life of work and community, family and friends, and so I've allocated a large amount of my time to serving the community. I've built small businesses in the financial, software, and technology world, but I was also the founder of Social Venture Partners here in Rhode Island that's connecting hundreds of local entrepreneurs with mentors and resources. Been the chairman of Rhode Island Special Olympics, president of the URI Alumni Association. I've been chair of the Rhode Island Board of Governors and very, very proud that I fought for and won in-state tuition for undocumented children. If higher education is important for any of us, it's important for all of us. I love and believe in this city, as all of us do, and I'm asking for the opportunity to serve you and to lead you and to make this a better city. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Solomon, Providence City Council President. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Providence Student Union and the 3 Mile walk they made me take. I still have the blisters. I also want to thank Young Voices. Karen, you're doing a great job with Young Voices. They should be strong voices. Because of Young Voices, Providence was the first, or one of the first cities in the nation to ban flavored tobaccos. And we did it with the encouragement and the support of Young Voices. And I want to publicly thank you for it. So let's give them a round of applause. I love this city. I was born here, raised here, went to school here, raised my family here, started my businesses here. Providence has been my home. Like so many immigrants, my grandfather came to this country over 100 years ago. 25 cents in his pocket. He was a door-to-door salesman. I was born in a 6-family house filled with relatives that worked day in and day out striving for the American dream. Every Sunday, we would take the time to meet and gather over Sunday dinner. And that's where I learned the importance of family and community. I moved up to the Elmhurst section at the age of 4, but it was in Olneyville. At the age of 6, working at my father's drugstore, bringing a register. At at 60, delivering medicine to senior citizens. Or I opened up my own business in New York, West's Rib House, where I continue to be today. Public service is something I wanted to do when I got involved. 3 years ago, I became the council president. And because of my experience as council president, I have a vision to move the city forward. Quality schools, good paying jobs, and strong neighborhoods. That's why I'm running for mayor.
First, I would like to thank all of the candidates for your opening statements. Thank you very much. And now we will be moving on to questions. For the first question, each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer, starting with Mr. Solomon. The question is as follows. We have conducted surveys with more than 1,500 of our peers. Every time we ask them what could improve education, they say they want more hands-on learning opportunities. How can we make sure that happens during and after the school day? How can we ensure that each individual student is getting the education and learning opportunities that are personalized to their needs and interests?
Hands-on learning is important. We need to move away from the one-size-fits-all method of teaching. We talk about autonomy in the schools, giving the principals the resources to run their schools, giving the teachers the ability to tailor their teaching methods, to teach the needs of the classroom. Different students have different learning methods. We need to have internship programs for our students, on-the-job training, in school and out of school. That's how I started. I took an internship working in a restaurant 34 years ago. That's what got me into the restaurant business today. And we need to partnership with our universities, colleges, and different workforces. We need to strengthen summer job programs. So after school's out, we still have the ability to learn. And if we do all those things, we can give our children more opportunities, our young adults more opportunities. And that's what it's about, giving you the opportunities to succeed, to learn, to take you into the next generation. That's what's important. Thank you.
So I didn't know it at the time, but when I took that typing class in 10th grade, I thought to myself, why am I learning this? You know, lo and behold, I invent personal computers, and being able to type is one of the things actually that I use every day. And typing 70 words a minute on my computer. Who knew? I took a woods class in junior high school and a metals class. And these are the kinds of hands-on things that not only help me learn new skills, but see the world differently, and also, frankly, have sources of joy today. I still make furniture. I still make things for my family for Christmas and for special occasions. So hands-on work is real important for all of us. My son's best friend went to the med school. He was failing in another school, but he had a passion for theater and acting. That school allowed him to have a curriculum built around something that he loved. Math, science, social studies were all built around that passion. That young man today is a director in New York City. No, we have to find more ways to allow our schools and our teachers to do in their classrooms, in all of our classrooms, what they believe will be most helpful to their students. Providing autonomy at a school level, at a classroom level, because our teachers know better than anybody, working with each individual student, what they need to discover and explore and make the most of their passion.
Before you begin, Mr. Elorza, I would like to mention that students, this is a time when you can use your smartphones and whatnot. Please tweet hashtag PVDYMF your thoughts and different things that you like about what the candidates are saying.
So, my vision for the public schools is this idea that every single school building becomes the pride of its neighborhood. So the central institution that brings together an entire community. Have you ever thought to yourself, why is it that schools are closed in the evenings? Why are they closed on weekends? And why are they closed all summer? These are public spaces that should be open and available to the community day-round and year-round. And what I would like to do, make sure that there are community meeting spaces, there are English classes, safe spaces for parents, sports, arts, music, social services, public health services, all happening right here within the school. And it's amazing what happens when you engage people in the process. Because the truth is that I don't have all the answers. No one person has all the answers. But when you bring people together and you give every single person a voice, that's when the magic happens. And I want to create that within every single one of our schools. Now the question is, how do we create more hands-on learning? Well, let's bring all of these community organizations into the school, and let's also bring the school out into the community. It's said that in today's environment, the soft skills are the new hard skills. Meaning, so the hard skills are how exactly to do something that a generation ago was considered the basics that you need to know. Now the soft skills, how to conduct yourself within an office, how to work with colleagues within an office setting, those soft skills, those management skills, those are now the basic skills that we need to succeed. And I want to make sure that we not only provide opportunities here and there, but that we create an entire structure so that hands-on experiential learning opportunities are integrated throughout the curriculum.
Here's a good question to emphasize the significant difference between the Democratic Party and their candidates and the Republican Party and its candidates. The Republican Party is firm on school choice. If you want to see what I've been doing for the last 4 to 6 years to improve the school system, then take your smartphones and mark the page rifreedom.org, rifreedom.org, a website for a think tank that I and others have put together called the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. And on that site you will see pages and pages, and report after report on how to improve the school system and do exactly what you're talking about here, giving students better learning opportunities that are personalized and hands-on. It is, in my opinion, immoral that the quality of schooling is based on the value and location of your home. I want to repeat that. I think it is immoral that the value and quality of your education is based on the value and location of your home, which is the case at the present time. You are not allowed to choose a school you want to go to, be it a public school in the rest of the city, never mind in the county or in the state, or a private school through the use of vouchers or through the use of other mechanisms to help you pay part of the tuition that your family might otherwise be able to afford. This type of school choice is exactly what you need to individualize education. That's the question. Individualized education. Go to rifreedom.org, look and see what's on that website, and look and see the proposals that we have to individualize education.
Well, again, it was Henry David Thoreau who said that it's not what you look at that matters, it's what you see. Now, these candidates will say that they are looking into these matters and that they have a plan and an objective to achieve these goals. Now, we've heard this, and I've heard this, election after election after election. I've run in 4 elections. They all have plans, none of them come about. The thing is, who will execute their plans for you? I will, because I am you. I grew up in this neighborhood. I care about you. I care about you being able to get a job. Now, what needs to be done is that we need to generate revenue to create these types of job programs. The way that we do that is by taxing Brown University. It pays no property taxes. Each of your parents pay more in property taxes than Brown University does. And your rent is directly affected by your property taxes on the building you live in. So your rents have gone up, and that's money out of your parents' pockets and out of your ability to function in our society. So Brown needs to be taxed, and I'm the only candidate here that's willing to tax Brown. Okay? I'm the only candidate here that's willing to set up an online system, a K-12 system that you can also supplement your credits there as well as in the classroom. Now, this is commonplace now today that there are K-12 programs online, okay? And we need to do this not only for the city of Providence, but so that we can receive state funding to fund a program like that. And that increased revenue will also help fund and renovate the schools and create more programs like this. These nonprofits that pay no taxes should offer jobs to students. They're paying no taxes. Shouldn't they give something in exchange for that? You should be able to be employed by these nonprofits like Brown University and these other nonprofits that pay no taxes. And I support a program like that. I also support reducing the interest rates on our bonds. And by doing that, we will increase revenue. And the way that we do that is we get the state to front a bond that will allow us to repurchase bonds at a lower interest rate, saving us money. Thank you.
You know, Albert Einstein said that he believes that everyone has genius within them. That if you tested a fish on his ability to climb a ladder, he would spend his lifetime thinking it was a failure.
All right, great. Similarly, I think we all learn differently. Some of us learn through reading, some of us learn through writing assignments, some of us learn through experiential activity. And what we need to do is teach in the way in which students can best learn. One of the things that hasn't been talked about yet is this implication on testing as well. We also need to test to coincide with the way in which we all learn. We have reached the end, I think, of the days when testing is going to be simply reading a dense passage and then being assessed on your ability to comprehend that passage. But we can't start testing better until we start teaching better. And so I will work with administrators and teachers who are as committed as I am to diversifying the way in which we instruct, to diversifying the way in which we assess learning, because we all learn differently and we need to reach students where they are so that they can in fact comprehend. That's the goal. The goal is not teaching people how to take a better test. The goal is teaching students to learn. And so for many of us, myself included, that's through experiential learning. You know, I relied heavily on internships both in high school and in college, and honestly, it didn't always tell me what I wanted to do, but it very much helped me eliminate things that I didn't want to do. And that's just as valuable. So we have all kinds of technology revolutions coming down the pipeline, 3D printing. And if we can't afford to have them in our schools, we need to form partnerships with places like AS220 so that you can get off campus and learn in places like that. I'm proud to have a student from the med school working in my small business on North Main Street who wants to be an accountant when he grows up and comes into the office every day to learn that way. And I'm going to continue to expand opportunities like that. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're moving on to our second question. All the candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer this. How do we make sure that students have adequate access to technology so they can be prepared for the jobs that are available in the 21st century? I'm going to start with candidate Fred Smiley.
The Providence School Department has a technology plan, and they've worked hard to write that plan and are working to implement it. So I don't want to second guess the parents, teachers, and administrators who contributed to the development of that plan. As mayor, my role is different. My role is to make sure that we are running a 21st century education system and that we are producing graduates, you all, who are prepared to compete in the 21st century and have the skills necessary to use the technology that you're going to need in order to be successful so that you can have a career that pays a living wage, that supports a life of dignity and allows for you to raise a family in a way which you can be comfortable and confident that you can pass along a similarly dignified life to your children. So that's the role of the mayor. What's equally important is that we have teachers who are qualified and comfortable using the technology. A recent study showed that approximately 40% of Providence teachers say that they are incorporating technology into their instruction where appropriate. It's just as important to have teachers that know how to use the technology as it is to have the technology. And so I'm committed to making sure that our technology plan keeps up with the future. I'm committed to making sure that we have teachers who are capable to use that technology, and so that you and the classes behind you will be prepared for great quality jobs for the rest of your life.
Well, it's some of the greatest minds within our technology industry that didn't go to college, they didn't go to high school, and they became programmers and developed their businesses and became very profitable. So what we need to do is we need to pull in state and federal grants and private grants for computer systems, new computer systems for all the schools, and also to offer a discount in internet access for the students within the school system. If you want to access the internet from your home, you should be able to do that at a discount. And the way that we can do that is a bulk purchasing deal that we can set up with internet access companies. And that's something done by a mayor, and it hasn't been done in the past, and that's the problem that we're facing. A lot of promises that don't get kept. They're made with straight faces, and it sounds like sincere commitments, but they are not sincere. And that's the thing that we have to get beyond. I've come to this forum before. I'm the only candidate that's run for mayor of Providence before on this panel. I received it, except, I'm sorry, I forgot about my Republican opponent, but I don't take Republicans. In any event, we have to try to provide technology and infrastructure, but the only way that we can do that is by taxing Brown University, and every one of these candidates is afraid to say it and unwilling to do it, and Brown should be paying $100 million a year in taxes, and that money could go into our school system and into providing technology and development within our schools.
Well, here's a question we come to that I led off with in my opening statements, which is money. For technology, you will need money. I think that the schools have done a good job attempting to apply for grants and to get support from others. But, Providence has, the highest commercial tax rates in the country. To talk about further taxes on anyone, and we can get into a debate on how you tax all nonprofits. You cannot tax a specific nonprofit like Brown, but you can't tax all nonprofits, the church, the hospital, and that type of thing if you want to. I am not in favor of increased taxes. Rather, I am in favor of taking our highest commercial tax rates in the nation and living within that budget. And how do we do that? I'm the only candidate up here who has promised to stop, as much as I can, any type of tax increase on anybody. I have promised to roll back the unjust pensions that were given out by the city over the course of decades. We have a retired fire chief who retired on a $60,000 salary and has a $195,000 pension. I have promised to stop the tax stabilization, where the city council and others give tax breaks to a friend or a business they think might work. We all know how 38 Studios turned out. And I am promising to get the money for technology in those fashions.
So I think that one of the problems with public education is not so much that it's broken, but that in many ways it's obsolete. We're working within a system that was designed for an industrial era. But it's a very different world nowadays. It's such a fast-paced world, it's such a fast-changing world, and it's such an interconnected world. And we have to do everything possible to make sure that our graduates are ready for that world once they leave our public schools. I believe there should be universal Wi-Fi at every single one of the schools. I believe everyone should have access to a computer throughout the day. And also, as I understand, many Many websites are blocked, including Google. I mean, how can we expect to prepare our kids when they don't have access to what is, for most of us, the first site that we visit when we go on the internet? And there's a program called Khan Academy that lives all online. That's really changing the way that many school districts are going about education. Rather than children coming in and listening to a lecture all day, it flips it on its head so that children, as homework, have to go online and listen to a lecture. And then when they come into school, the teacher, instead of giving the lectures, is there to actually help them with whatever problems they have to overcome and challenges that they had. We need to redesign our public education system.
So I start with all students are hungry to learn. That's the human condition. We all are curious. We're all hungry to learn. Our job as a community is to help our students do that, to help our students find and pursue their passion. In many ways, Providence is a tale of two cities. There's a big gulf between the haves and the have-nots. I think one of the things that we have to do is focus on access and affordability for all our students. To be ready for the 21st century jobs, all of our students have to have affordable access to technology and communications in the schools, all day, and when they go home. Because what good does it do if you get inspired by something while you're in school and then go home to no internet access and no computer to continue to pursue your curiosity? I have committed to free citywide internet starting in the lowest income communities in Providence, and we'll be exploring the possibilities of other things that would add additional value there. We have the Providence Career and Technical Academy has a digital media arts track that is very inspiring to many young people. We need to make sure that all students have access to those kinds of resources. The mayor can make a big difference. The mayor can access low-cost technology, attract foundations, attract corporate support, and attract philanthropy like nobody else can.
It's hard to be prepared for 21st century jobs when you go to some of the schools and there's no wireless or Wi-Fi. And there's not enough electrical outlets in the classroom. I announced for mayor back in January. When I announced, I said I had a big idea. Big idea to rebuild our schools. Rebuilding our schools including technology. We need first-rate learning centers. Not just some schools, all our schools. Every school in the city of Providence deserves to be a quality first-rate learning center. Every neighborhood deserves to have one. And we'll do that. We'll make sure that there's smart boards in the classrooms. We'll make sure that there's iPads in the classrooms. All the tools that you need to succeed in life, that'll be our job. Make sure that you have them. That's how we're going to improve the system. Thank you.
For the next question, each 2 minutes to answer. So starting with Mr. Michael Solomon. The question is, what is your stance on high-stakes testing? How can we make sure that students are judged on their proficiency and mastery of important subjects, instead of just one score on a single test?
First of all, I said that I do not support handicap testing, but I do support high standards. Everyone learns differently. Everyone in this room learns differently. And test scores don't capture the full picture. We have to move away from the top-down, one-size-fits-all method of educating and evaluating our students. We need to invest in early childhood education. If a student is not proficient in the 11th grade, it's not because of something they didn't learn in the 9th or 10th grade. It's probably something that has to be learned in the 3rd grade. So we need to make sure that our students are reading 3rd grade level by the time they're in the 3rd grade. Because after that, you're reading to learn. And if you can't read, you can't learn. And that's how we can move for a better system that works for everyone.
So our responsibility as a community, not as a teacher, not as a parent, not as a classroom, not as a school, our responsibility as a community is to prepare all our students for the future. As a community, we need to have a standard so that everyone, students and the community at large, companies that are looking to hire people, know what our students are able to do when they graduate. Our standard should be high, it should be reasonable, and it should be a measure of proficiency and mastery of a number of subjects and skills. It will be important to our students having success in their lives and their careers. So I believe that very, very strongly. It is hard for me to imagine, however, that a single test can serve as a fair measure of all that. I don't believe it can. I think a test can be a helpful tool, a marker for us, something to strive for. But a test is just one tool. There are so many other things that go into an education, learning, and development of an individual who's a great member of the community. As mayor, I'll ensure that we have a process by which the community comes together around standards for all our schools and commits the focus we need to make sure all our students are prepared to meet those standards. I will ensure that our school system has effective strategies for helping students be successful at every grade, not just passing a test when they're a senior, but as the city council president said, pre-K, K, first grade, second grade, third grade. If we engineer the system to make sure that every student is successful at every grade, we have a student that's ready for life when they're graduating from our system. We have a lot of great things going on in the school system today, many good plans on board, and I think we should provide for continuity in those plans.
You know, I'm very proud of my position on the NECAP as a graduation requirement. I was the only candidate, only one of us among us, and this is before any of us declared our candidacy, that took the test with the PSU, and I have to thank the Providence Student Union for their leadership on this issue. I also was the first candidate to testify publicly against the NECAP as a graduation requirement. And the reason why I testified and still am against it is because I think it moves us in the wrong direction. We have to move towards a curriculum that's geared towards learning for its own sake. So, in keeping with our commitment with experiential learning and bringing the community into the school and the school out into the community, imagine, instead of one standardized test, if the graduation requirement was to do, let's say, a history project by going out to the John Hope Settlement House and understanding, what its history and its role within the neighborhood is. And it also teaches us a number of life skills. You have to call, you have to reach out to the leaders in these organizations, you have to set up meetings, you have to coordinate them, you have to take notes, you have to draft it. We can engage an entire community around what we're doing in the schools by sending our kids out into the world and developing those skills that they're going to use each and every day as professionals out there. And we can do this in so many ways. Suppose as an English project, a student has an interest in LGBT justice issues. Well, they can go to Youth Pride, interview them, and figure out how they contribute to the community. And there's no end in sight once we start heading in this direction. Perhaps as a biology class, you could go to the Woonasquatucket River and measure levels of pollution over time, and you can see how it has sustained the community. There are so many opportunities here. It's a matter of heading in that direction.
I too am against high-stakes testing, much as the Republican philosophy is for individualized instruction and individualized treatment. So I think that, especially for a high school diploma, individualized assessment needs to be done. Now I say that as a person who's held faculty degrees at 2 different Ivy League universities, having a doctoral degree, master's degree, a postdoctoral degree, and getting you to also realize, unfortunately, you will be tested with these tests for the rest of your life in certain fields. So you need to be aware of that. I'm 60 years old. In 2 years, I have to undergo a 2-day written and oral examination to keep my certification as a psychiatrist. That's the state we're in. Any of us that have graduate degrees have taken the MCATs, the GMATs, the LSATs. So you will be tested. But I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all solution, and that every high school student, to get their diploma, must pass a certain standardized test. I think that should be an option. I think that should be one of the options to graduate, as well as so that you can use the standardized tests when you go on and apply, and you have that credential. But also that there should be other ways to certify that you have attained a 12th grade education and understand 12th grade materials, reading, science, and the like.
Well, as you can tell, my daughter, Emmanuel Mary Catherine, has a voice that can be heard. And we all have voices in opposition to the NECAP testing. But the question is, will your voice be heard by those that you appoint into this position as Mayor of Providence? I have seen election after election, people saying that their ears are open to hear your voice and the issues that you care about, but when they are in a position of power to make an effective change, that does not occur. And we've seen that in our school system by the infrastructure of the schools being poorly kept. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Providence school system receives $328.3 million. Why are roofs leaking? Why is there substandard education? And the reason is because these people who are put into power do not care about you, and they will promise everything to you. And when they're in power, they will not keep their promises. Like Angel Tavares, who was appointed by David Cicilline as a housing court judge to give him credibility to run for mayor of Providence. And then when he became mayor, he terminated almost 2,000 teachers. Okay? And some of those teachers were good teachers. Okay?
Excuse me, sir. We ask that you stick to the question about high-stakes testing.
Obviously, I'm saying that the problem with high-stakes testing is that the school system is corrupted, that these politicians are corrupt. And unless you elect somebody who's honest and cares about your interests, grew up in your neighborhood, represents your positions honestly, and is not just lying to you, then these things will not change. And we've seen it all around us. We've seen our fellow students being killed on the streets because of drug trafficking, okay? Because of gangs that are supplying drugs by organized crime. If you're tired of your fellow classmates dying, it's time for real change in electing me.
You know, one of the things that I think is great that's happened over the last couple of years, and this really has a lot to do with the people in this room, is that all of us, Republican and Democrats, are all opposed to NECAP. And that's because you've helped educate the community on the shortcomings of that assessment. And congratulations to you for taking a stake in your own future and making that change happen. I too am one that am opposed to NECAP. It's the wrong test. I don't support a test as the sole graduation requirement. And but it's true. Testing is a part of life, and we do need to understand that. In this room are future lawyers and doctors, and frankly, one of our next mayors. And the time will come when you have to sit up here and be prepared to demonstrate what you know in a high-pressure situation. So testing is a part of life, but it only can work when we have the right test and when we have a good test, a test that is aligned with curriculum. And some of those changes are coming, and we need to work together, and the classes that are following you need to work together to make sure that it is in fact a good test and a fair test, and a test that can allow for people who learn differently to be assessed and evaluated differently. The other thing that hasn't been mentioned that I think is equally important is the frequency with which we test. We cannot have an education system where we are spending more time and more time testing. I know of stories where in schools in our system where even the classes who aren't being tested are asked to stay home to keep the building quiet so that those who are testing can do better. So here we have a class that's not even being tested losing instructional time. And so we need to cut back on the frequency with which we test. We need better tests, but we need smarter tests. We need tests that we can do less frequently that will actually fairly assess how much we've learned, if we're teaching you all properly, and if we are preparing you for 21st century jobs. Thank you.
This next question the next question, the candidates will have 1 minute to answer. There's too much absenteeism in schools. Students and their families go through great hardship to get to school because of our high school transportation policy. How would you deal with the problem of students not getting bus passes to get to school?
There's been some really important work done by volunteers, teachers, administrators, community leaders to understand and evaluate in a real way what the causes are of chronic absenteeism and tardiness in our system. And that's been terrific work. Our job is to respond to that, to make sure that we're cutting down upon that. PSU and others have been terrific in raising the level of awareness on this issue, and so I too was proud to have taken that 3-mile walk. I do support bringing the busing radius down to 2 miles. We need to reevaluate the transportation system system-wide so that we do it in a way in which we can afford. I will say that 2 days ago, I proposed a short-term solution that we can do tomorrow, which is on foul weather days, on days when it's really hot or really cold or pouring down rain, we notify you just like we would notify you if it's a snow day, and on those days you ride the bus for free. And for a fraction of the cost, the school system can reimburse RIPTA on a per diem basis, and RIPTA is ready to make that change tomorrow.
Well, I don't think it should just be on rainy days or snowy days that you get to ride on RIPTA. I think that RIPTA is providing a service, and they should provide it to the citizens within the students within the city of Providence. Now, we have a $328 million budget that goes to the city of Providence. Why isn't some of that money being provided for students who are, income eligible to be able to ride RIPTA for free? And there should be a lower criteria for that income eligibility. And I think that a 2-mile radius is obviously, it should be a 2-mile. If a student lives 2 miles away from their school, they should be provided with these passes. And it's just simple logic that a student who can't get to school will not learn. And why are we funding this system where kids can't go to school and take transportation that is for the public to take? It's because these politicians are in office and they don't care about you. It's been happening year after year after year, and it's time to wake up to that and to change that. It's time to elect somebody who will actually get you these passes.
Of course, there's many reasons for absenteeism, but as I understand the question, we have 1 minute for, it focuses on transportation. This is one of those issues that can easily be solved with money, and easily be solved by giving students who live further than 2 miles away from schools passes. Education has not been a priority in this city's government for many, many years. The payment of unjust pensions has been, the tax stabilization game, where favors are given out to businesses so that they don't have to pay the taxes that are due. Those have been priorities. In a Republican administration, education and public safety and jobs will be the priorities. And that will come from better management of the resources we have with our current taxes.
So once again on this issue, students took the lead and they educated us on this. I mean, that's extremely powerful. And I came out with a proposal. This issue has been out since 2009, and there hasn't been any movement on it. I came out with a proposal roughly a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, to bring the walking limit to 2 miles and to grant bus passes to anyone who lives beyond that. We spend $330 million in public education. We can spend $1.35 to get children to school. If we don't invest this money, that $330 million is all for naught. So again, when you engage people in the process and you ask them about a transportation policy, it's not just about taking a bus. What about bike racks at the schools? What about places to put your skateboard? What about for some students who actually do drive to school, giving them preferred parking for whoever carpools? We can be creative and we can make a great difference in this area.
So I think this is about what are our schools for and what role do they play in the community. If we want it to be a place where our community lives, if we want it to be a place that reaches out into our community, students have to show up. If something is standing in the way of students showing up at school, we want to look at it, we want to analyze it, and we want to eliminate that barrier. When students are missing school, there's a very, very high cost to them, to their families, to the community. The cost of absenteeism is much, much greater than the cost of transportation. Another $1 million has to be a priority to make it a 2-mile standard, and that is less than 1/3 of 1% of our school budget. Lack of transportation should never be a reason for absenteeism.
I took that walk. That wasn't an easy walk. That was a 3-mile walk. We did it on a relatively nice day. So I can imagine if it's raining out, if it's snowing out, if it's 0 or subpar temperatures, and you're looking out your window. I don't think there's a student that would want to make that walk. I don't think there's a student who gets done with after school program that gets out at 5 o'clock would want to make a 3-hour walk at night. I was happy to be part of a council that supported a resolution to lower the 3-mile walking distance to 2 miles. And we'll get that done, and we'll work on it, so it'll be in place for next school year. And I've done the walking school bus program for elementary school students. Chronic absenteeism is within 1 mile of the schools. We have elementary students, less than 1 mile absent more than other students. So I volunteer my time to walk twice a month to make sure that these kids get to school and from school.
The next question, each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to answer, and it is, there are too many suspensions in Providence schools, and this strategy is now rectifying Providence's behavioral problems. How would you reform the discipline system to actually benefit the student? Starting with Councilman Solomon.
First of all, we have to find out why they're getting suspended. If they're getting suspended because they're walking 3 miles to school and they're late, then we're going to have to fix that problem. We will fix that problem. If it's for disciplinary reasons, then we have to teach our students. We have to put nonviolent courses in our curriculum. We have to partner with the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence so we can teach nonviolent courses in our schools. We need to teach our students how to mediate their differences. We have to work with programs like peer jury. These are all the things that we can do to ensure that kids are in school. Because if you're suspending students, they're not learning. We have to find ways to keep them in the schools. And that's how we're going to address this problem.
Congratulations again to the student union for bringing this to the fore. I appreciate your leadership. Suspension is used too often. I think we all agree on that. And rarely does it achieve anything good. School is about learning, a place to learn more than math and science and art. It is a place where we learn as a community how to be with one another. It is a place where we learn how to respect one another, honor each other with our own behavior. I believe that if I behave in a way that isn't consistent with the expectations of my community, I should be held accountable to that community, whether it be my family, my friends, or my neighbors. School suspensions don't help students face their community. School suspensions don't help students learn, either the offending party or the rest of the student body. School suspensions don't help any of us learn.
We have to stop the school to prison pipeline. There's a phrase that I've always loved. It goes, you never let a good crisis go to waste. So you never let a good crisis go to waste. Whenever there's chaos, that's when there's opportunity. Whenever there's a chaotic situation, the student is out of line, that's an opportunity. Not an opportunity to suspend them, remove them from the school and remove them from class, but an opportunity to restore the work that they've, the harm that they've done to the community. Now, many other communities have adopted restorative justice practices. This is a way where the wrongdoer can reflect on what they've done wrong and also take responsibility so that they can restore whatever harm they've caused to that community. This is an opportunity to bring them closer rather than push them out. And I agree with Council President Solomon on this. We have to teach nonviolence in the schools, and we have to partner with organizations such as the Nonviolence Institute. It's about intervention, it's about prevention, and it's about supportive re-entry.
This is not a topic I have significant disagreement on with my colleagues up here. I can repeat everything they have said before. There are completely different methods and better methods for dealing with behavioral issues within the school setting. I served for many years at Brown University's Academic Discipline Committee. That was a committee composed of teachers and students to get input on a particular discipline. So we were disciplining college-age freshmen instead of high school seniors. Not much difference in that particular sense. I think it is absolutely important to involve the students within the disciplinary process. Schools are places where we teach you things and where you learn things. And in this type of an academic institution, we can use the disciplinary process to basically show you how to develop skills to work through difficulties within society and give you opportunities to participate in making decisions and resolving conflicts. Some of the discipline problems may be solved by a student jury, and the students will decide on their own discipline. Some will involve the faculty, and certainly as well. Only the most severe cases with clear laws and danger would need to involve outside forces. So there are many different models that can be used. It's clear that the current model is not working, and there needs to be a significant change of what's going on.
Well, it's a political tactic in every single one of these mayoral elections to repeat what I said. And it takes the attention away from what I say and it places it on the other candidate who just repeats it. And the audience is just to believe that that answer came from that person who repeats what I said. The truth is that that's a tactic that's used politically. It's embarrassing, and it should not be done. It talks down to the audience, and we're more intelligent to know that a candidate who repeats what another candidate says is pandering to you and pandering to your intelligence. And I think it's really an unjust situation. Anyways, kids bunk class. They bunk class because of gang activity. Gangs are a prevalent group within the city of Providence, and they're distributing drugs and illegal guns, and these things need to stop. Obviously, we need to create jobs where these kids who are suspended, instead of being suspended at home, can do in-school suspensions where they learn through an online program. They'll be inside a classroom in school, learning coursework, repeating coursework that they've done, or they can work at a city-sponsored manufacturing facility like a solar manufacturing plant where these students can manufacture products to sell these products and gain practical vocational training that they can use when they graduate from school.
One of the best ways to ensure discipline in schools is to make sure that you are all not bored to death. And by engaging students in effective instruction, that's the best way to address discipline. 15 minutes of recess is not enough. That's a strategy to address discipline. What we need to make sure is that we have instructors, teachers, that have the instructional skills necessary to provide different levels of instruction, different forms and type of instruction for different learners. We need to connect with folks so that they are remaining engaged, and that's how we make sure that we don't have discipline problems. Also, we need to make sure that we're providing the other important wraparound services that our students need. If you find yourself in high school but are still reading at a 5th grade level, you're going to start to get disengaged. You're going to start to have other concerns and challenges, and that can lead to this effort. The solution is not a suspension. The solution is bringing that young person up to grade level so that they can participate with the rest of their class. If it gets to that final point where there are serious behavioral issues, then I fully support a notion of restorative justice, where teacher and administrator, the student and the parents work together to find a disciplinary solution that is commiserate with what the challenge was, that provides a learning opportunity, and that provides that young person an opportunity to right the situation.
Before moving on, I would like to also point out that all candidates have a white and blue folder made by Generation Citizen that is working on restorative justice and doing the student jury at our own school at EQ. So you can also look at those for details there. Now, on to the next question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer this. Many schools in Providence are falling apart or at best are in disrepair. What would you do to fix this problem?
It's been mentioned a couple times here today that we have a $330 million school budget, and yet we have fundamentally failing facilities. I've had a chance to tour and be in almost half of the schools, and will have been in the rest by the end of the school year. And I know what the challenges are, and it's not acceptable. My priority, because there's going to be lots of promises made about who and how are they going to fix the schools, but it needs to be a one that's realistic and a commitment that I can keep in terms of how are we going to pay for this. My next priority is, regardless of what neighborhood you live in, you deserve to go to a school that has adequate heat, that is safe and free of fire hazards, and that is one in which you can learn without the distractions of a failing facility. I say this as someone who lives on the east side. It's not fair that there are only a few good, high-quality facilities in this system, and I will raise the floor district-wide as mayor to make sure that all of our schools have basic needs being met so that you all can learn in the way in which you need to learn, free from distraction from facilities problems.
Yeah, but have they done that? Has this administration done that? I wrote legislation to stop them from building schools on dumps. They build schools on dump sites. Do they care about the students? I wrote legislation to make sure the indoor air quality of these schools that are built on dumps is standard enough so that you don't get cancer. Do they care about you? Do these politicians who are in office, who repeat the same thing over and over again, care about you? If they're building your school on a dump site? If they're not checking the indoor air quality of the school, and 9 teachers at one school have cancer, and they know about it, and they won't close the school? Brown University can be taxed. Brown University is not a religious institution. Mr. Harrop is wrong, and I'm willing to take Brown into the federal court to prove it, to give you money so that you can have schools that are renovated, schools that have top line of technology.
Time is up.
1 minute. We really need a whole debate on this. This is one of these issues where you have to listen to the candidates and discover whether they plan to get the money to repair the schools. So we all agree there needs to be significantly more money put into the buildings. Where the money is coming from. And unless you get a specific answer, I don't think you can expect those repairs to go on. Now, I have a specific answer, the Republicans. The Republicans are not going to increase taxes at all on anybody. Believe me, if the Democrats could tax nonprofits, they would have taxed nonprofits long before this, because they taxed everything else. We're going to roll back the unjust pensions. We're going to stop the tax stabilization giveaways. That will provide the money to repair the schools. So ask these candidates, where are you getting the money?
I mentioned at the beginning that my plan is for every school to be the pride of its neighborhood. And you walk into so many schools, and as soon as you walk into the school, you can see whether they have a positive culture or not. If the school is falling apart, if there's chipping paint, there's a moldy smell, there's drafty windows, whatever it might be, you can see how easily that dampens spirits and brings down the culture of the school. So repairing the facilities and investing in infrastructure has to be at the top of any of our education priorities. But we have to acknowledge that we didn't get here overnight. The schools didn't get in this condition from one day to the next. It took a long series of decisions that were supposed to be made, but were instead kicked down the road. I commit myself to being proactive, to make sure that to the extent we can prevent these lack of maintenance decisions being made, we will act on them proactively so we can cut it off at the pass.
Every school should be safe and clean and a place where we want to be. If they're not all of those things, they're not going to be the community gathering places we want them to be, and we need them to be. Maintenance is not an option. I don't think it's a big idea. I think it's an obligation every year in every budget. As mayor, I'm committed to making scheduled maintenance an absolute, not something to be done when it's convenient. I will put an end to the culture of kicking the can down the road, not only on maintenance of our schools, but pension obligations and meeting our financial obligations. With that kind of culture, you end up with roofs that never get fixed, pensions that don't get funded, streets that don't get fixed, an economy that is not attractive to investors. This needs to be a place that's attractive to invest. My first priority will be safety, followed by other things as well, including, most importantly, giving teachers the resources they need to do the job they know how to do and want to do in their classrooms.
As I said, back in January when I announced for mayor, I said that I would invest $250 million to rebuild our schools. And I've been to some of those schools. Some of those schools are your schools. They need to be rebuilt. But we're going to do it in a fiscally responsible way. We're going to do it over a 10-year period. We know we can't do it overnight. To fix our schools, it would take $1 billion, but we have to start somewhere. And I have a plan to start. It's going to take 10 years, but we will get it done. Because we need quality schools. You need quality schools. You need state-of-the-art schools. You need first-rate learning centers. And we will work to ensure that you have those in your neighborhood.
The next question, every candidate will have 1 minute to answer, and it is, there are schools that don't have certified teachers in all classrooms, particularly math and science classes. Other schools lack critical staff like counselors and nurses. What are you going to do to make sure all schools have teachers and staff that they need? Starting with Councilman Solomon.
Math and science skills are important. We all know that. We need certified math teachers. We need certified science teachers. Our schools need to have the appropriate staff, whether it's counselors, school nurses. That's important. We need to make sure our children are getting the right education, and we have the best possible teachers that are teaching. You have to make sure that the child is sick, that there's a nurse in the classroom. If the child needs a guidance counselor, that guidance counselor has to be there. It's important. I had the chance to go to the Feinstein on Broad Street, and the principal told me about a case where there were some students that had witnessed violence. There wasn't a guidance teacher there for them. They wanted to see them. That's not right. So we need to make sure that we have the best teachers and the best support staff in every school in the city of Providence.
You know, we have talked about standards for students. We also need to talk about standards for ourselves as a community, for the school, for our teachers. We as a community need to be willing to step up and support the standards that we agree to. I commend the students for bringing this to our attention, to the table. It's an important one to look at. It is one of the many standards that we need to be paying attention to as a system. Our schools can also be made much better by giving teachers more of the resources they need. One of the exciting things coming down the pike, I think, is a much more aggressive plan to make accountability at a school level and at a classroom level, and giving schools and teachers the flexibility and the freedom to do the job the way they think it ought to be done in their classroom. And that means being able to bring in all kinds of community organizations to help them do their job.
So a big part of the reason why there's a lack of certified teachers is in math and science is because we've made it very challenging to be a teacher nowadays. I've spoken with many teachers throughout the city, and regardless of how much idealism, regardless of how much gusto you come into the system with as a new teacher, if you're a teacher for 10 to 15 years, unfortunately, the system over time will break you. And so it's very difficult to attract the best and the brightest to become teachers. And even now that we do attract them, about 40 to 50% of new teachers are leaving the profession within their first 5 years. And they're never given the opportunity to fully master their craft. To turn this around, we have to start with the belief that the teachers are one of our greatest assets within the schools, and we have to fully support them in their professional development and in their work in the classroom.
I know I'm sounding like a broken record when it comes to talking about money. But what you need is you need better paid teachers, and you need better paid assistants, and you need better paid staff. Education has not been a priority in city government for many, many years. I have in previous debates noted that the lack of a physics teacher at Alvarez High School last year was a scandal. That should never have happened, and that there needs to be more flexibility in union contracts as well as in budgeting. I have been in favor, unlike my other colleagues up here, of an elected school committee, a committee that would have to go before the public on a staggered basis, and that would have additional voices rather than a mayor-appointed school committee. You need to have more input into the schools. You need to have more communities involved. You need to have more discussion on a daily basis regarding how to improve these issues.
Well, I disagree with Jorge. The reason why there's a lack of teachers is because his friend Angel Tavares fired 2,000 teachers in 2011. And so, the city of Providence has increased its federal funding by $19 million. Why aren't there more teachers? This administration doesn't care about the students. This administration doesn't care about math and science. I have an electrical engineering degree. I got that degree as an orphan from South Providence, and I studied the highest levels of mathematics. It's not possible for kids from the inner city to learn mathematics. Many students that I grew up with were very proficient in mathematics. They actually went on to universities like Brown and Harvard. And the possibility is there, but we have to impassion our teachers in our school system, the ones that are there, by offering them bonuses for student performance. We have to do things that incentivize the students to attend school. And we have to tell the truth. That's what we have to do.
In many ways, this is one of the most important questions asked all night or all afternoon, because there's no substitute and nothing more important than a high-quality teacher. We need to make sure that we have well-educated, well-trained teachers in every classroom and in every school building, which means we need to recruit the best teachers. We need to make sure that Providence and the Providence Public School District is a place where teachers want to teach. And we can do that by making sure that Providence is a place where teachers want to live. That is an important piece of the puzzle. We also need to recruit more teachers of color and more bilingual teachers so that we can make sure that our teaching staff reflects the diversity of its student body and do things like recruit at our historically black colleges and go outside of Rhode Island to find the best to get them to come and teach in Providence. We absolutely need subject matter experts in every classroom, and where we can't find certified teachers in certain subjects, we need to consider alternative pathways to teaching to make sure that we have experts in every classroom. Finally, we need more counselors, nurses, and paraprofessionals, and in order to afford that, we need to look to partnerships to do it.
Okay, final question. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer this. After No Child Left Behind, our school's focus has been narrowed to zoom in on math and reading and shift away from the arts and music. How would you prioritize sufficient funding for arts, music, theater, etc., without decreasing resources for other subjects? Starting with candidate Smiley.
I don't know about you, but there were many times that the reason I went to school is because I was looking forward to my extracurricular. We need to make sure that that remains a part of the subject matter. So while we have focused on excessive testing in math and science, arts and theater and music have fallen by the wayside. The reality is, as Dan points out all the time, a lot of these things do in fact come down to money. And so the solution for our extracurricular programming is partnering with the amazing artist community that we have here in Providence. There are world-class artists and designers and performers and everything else in Providence that we need to be partnering with. I'm very well familiar with and proud of the work that PASA has done. I've volunteered with New Urban Arts. I've volunteered at Youth Pride. These are the organizations that can provide the richness that you need in your school day that may not be provided in the school building at some point, but that is an important part of your educational experience and your enjoying your life as a young person and finding a passion that could take you to a career for a lifetime.
In all honesty, AS220 has existed for years. And I'm an artist, I'm a filmmaker. I've won awards for films that I've produced. I'm a songwriter. And this is my primary objective, is to make sure that the arts and the development of the brain that the arts induce is promoted in the public school system. And this is something I'm adamant about and that I will make come about as Mayor of Providence by taxing Brown University and keeping my promises. Now, Mr. Solomon has promised $250 million to you and to the schools over 2 years.
We ask if you don't mention any candidates' names specifically.
I think that the candidates here should sign contracts with the students that are binding contracts that these promises are kept. You promised $250 million, let's have them sign an agreement that you can sue the city over if they don't comply with the $250 million he's promising. These are lies said over and over again.
Well, this is a subject on which I have a long track record, not in Providence than elsewhere. I served on the board of directors of a private school in Warwick for many years. I have essentially chaired the board of directors art committee. And because of my work over those years, in fact, the theater is named in my honor at that school. I have a long history of support for the arts, and I thank Brett for mentioning that, yes, I bring up money a lot, and thank him for also suggesting that we need to bring in a community. One of the things that Providence is strong in is a fantastic arts community, not just the School of Design, but the various art institutions, such as AS220 and the like that are in the city. These institutions can be brought into the public schools. They have been brought into other schools elsewhere. I am not in favor of public financing of art, except where it's funded in the public schools. And that is, the city money needs to be brought in to the city schools.
So this is not only one of the biggest issues, but it's also an area where there's a great deal of opportunity. So I mentioned that we live in a very fast-changing world today, And the truth is that there's no skill that we can give to young people to prepare them for the world they're going to face when they graduate. The only way we can fully prepare young people is by giving them the creativity, the problem-solving skills, and the teamwork that they're going to need for whatever work they find after they graduate in that world. And so the arts really builds off of one of our greatest assets and resources here in the city. We have world-class institutions. We have world-class community-based organizations. We have to find even better ways to integrate them into the curriculum, into what we're doing in the schools, and get our students also out to those organizations. I've mentioned that in my first day in office, what I will do is I will bring back the Providence P, because we are the creative capital, and that's one of our greatest strengths.
All forms of art inspire lifelong learning. They're the things that inspire us. And STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, is made much stronger when you put an A in the middle and call it STEAM. John Maida at RISD had us all think about that, and I think he's right. When I was in high school, I went to school because I wrestled, and that inspired me, and I was the editor of our school newspaper, which inspired me. If we don't have access to extracurricular activities and a wide variety of them, we won't provide the number of options that students can sort through to find their own passion. So we have to do that. Arts and music inspire lifelong learning, ignite passion, and that's what this is about. We can get this done by a commitment to something more in the budget, but a larger commitment to brokering relationships with the fabulous organizations throughout our city. YMCA, PASA, Young Voices, Youth in Action, City Arts, New Urban Arts, AS 220, so many that we've all spoken of. I think there's a lot of agreement on this.
Every student should have access to a well-rounded education. The arts, music, if that piques your interest, you need to have those courses. But unfortunately, that's the first thing that gets cut when we cut our budget. So we need to look for ways in partnership with organizations like AS 220, Trinity Rep, BPAC, and all the organizations that are in this room. We need to take middle management money from the school department and send it directly to the schools so we can fund those classes, those art classes, those music classes. And that will preserve and grow access to the arts during and after school. Thank you.
At this time, every candidate will have the opportunity to present their closing statements for 1 minute and 30 seconds, starting with Mr. Solomon.
First of all, I want to thank you all for having me here. I want you to know that in this city,
I love this city too, and I believe in the city, as I think we all do. But I'm running for mayor because our economy is not producing enough great jobs for you. Because our schools are not serving our students and their families well enough. Because for far too long, people have experienced City Hall as an obstacle rather than a partner in progress. A mayor's job is to serve and to lead. I'm asking you for the opportunities to do both. As mayor, I'll use my experience to build an entrepreneurship economy and a competitive city that creates jobs, attracts businesses, creates summer jobs for our students, and a place to work when you graduate. I'll push for swift and continuous improvement in our schools, because no child and no life gets a do-over just because the system and the community has failed. I'll make City Hall a world-class customer service organization. The people of Providence should be able to walk into City Hall and get their business done quickly and easily. It's going to take all of us giving our best to make Providence its best. The challenges are big, but you know, there's nothing that you and I can't get done together. I hope and expect that as you've all demonstrated today, you each will stand up and be a part of that work to make this the city we all know it could be and should be. Thank you.
So I've had some of the most wonderful opportunities in my life. At the very beginning, I told you a little bit about my background, where my parents came to this country, worked in factories, worked hard, just humble people. I barely made it out of high school. I got a chance to go to college. What I didn't mention is when I graduated from college, I went to New York City and I worked on Wall Street. And one day I received a call from my father. And my dad told me that one of my best friends from my neighborhood in the West End, that one of my friends had just gotten killed. I was 21 years old when I received that call. And that's what spurred me that day to leave my job and to come back and dedicate the rest of my life to fight and to work in this community. I went on to graduate from Harvard Law School. I became a law professor. I became a judge. And all of that happened because people believed in me and opened that door for me. I am running for mayor to believe in you, to open the door for you, because I believe that if you have the opportunity to fully realize your capacity, you're going to go out and change the world. And that's why I want to be mayor, to support you in what you do.
I do want to thank everybody for inviting me here today and for putting up with our discussion here. When these fine gentlemen decide which one of them is going to be on the November ballot with me, I hope you will have the two of us back, and that we can have a much more extensive discussion about who would be best as mayor, as your next mayor in Providence. I've been an educator for 30 years. I've been on the faculty at both the Brown Medical Schools and the Harvard Medical Schools. So let me end this lecture, if it will, as I usually do when I'm just talking to students. I want you to take 3 points home today if you remember nothing else about what has gone on. The first is that the Republican administration would be extremely different from the Democratic administration that has run this city for many years. We firmly believe it is immoral, I'll repeat that again, immoral, that your school assignment and your fate is decided by where your house is, and in essence, the value of your house. 2, you can find much more information about what a Republican administration would do at the website rifreedom.org. Very simple, rifreedom.org. There are a number of position papers that you can pull down from there. And 3, you need to push all the candidates, including me, on how they will pay for their promises, because I heard lovely promises today. $250 for school, iPads, certified teachers. Only I have presented you with a firm plan to raise the money.
Well, Dennis is sitting pretty close by, and I've said several times I tax Brown University. And he may be one of those people who can't hear what I'm saying. I hope that you are a group of people who can hear what I'm saying. My child will attend these public schools in this city. I love my child, and I will protect my child and provide the best education for my child that the city can provide. I, as a candidate, have seen vast corruption in the city of Providence, and many of you as well have seen that all around you, with the deaths of your fellow students, with the gang activity, with the drug activity, with the lack of funding in the schools, with the $700 million unfunded pension liability that the city of Providence faces. This debt you face as well. Unless we change things, unless we become the peacemakers in our society and each take a role against the corruption within our election process itself, unless we take this role on, these things will not change. Jesus said on the Mount, he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." What would you rather be, a child of God or a follower of someone who lies to you? I will do everything in my capacity to fight for you. I wasn't allowed to open any of these questions here today. I will not be covered in the media today. Every debate, they don't say what I say in these debates, but I come back for you. I fight for you. I fight for the truth, and I fight for the future of this city. This city shall be represented by the people, and the people's needs shall be met.
15 years ago, when I was working on safe schools in the Chicago public schools, So when a kid that looked a lot like me would get bullied in the hallway, pushed into lockers and the rest, principals and teachers at the time used to say, oh, that's just boys being boys. You know, lots changed in the last 15 years, but the reality is back then, students knew what was really taking place. And that's still true today. You all know what's actually happening in the classroom better than anyone else. And the other party that we haven't talked very much about today is your parents know what's actually happening in the school system today. And so what's important to me is that I listen to you and your parents and the school community throughout this process and as mayor. Because like you, I love Providence. I want to see it grow. I want to see it prosper. I want to see everyone have a chance to work full-time and be able to support their family with dignity and a middle-class lifestyle. I want to make sure that we have high-quality education and that we value our schools starting at pre-K all the way through high school and help you get into the top colleges or technical schools or certification programs so that you can earn those good jobs. What we need, though, is someone who can start that work immediately. We don't have a day to waste. I've written some very detailed recommendations and plans on how to make Providence more prosperous, how to make our neighborhoods safer, how to make our city greener. All of these plans in very good detail are available online at smileyformayor.com, and I hope you'll take a chance to go read them. The most important thing that you do is hold us accountable. Come back next year and make sure we're fulfilling the promises we made to you today. Thank you.
I'd like to also point out that we ended at 2:45, which is normally when our in-class instruction would end every day. Nice timing. I would also like to introduce Priscilla Rivera, who is going to be closing up the event for us.
Good afternoon. My name is Priscilla Rivera. I'm a leader with the Providence Student Union. Thank you all for coming out to this event, especially all the students who are here on vacation. I would also like to thank all the candidates for coming and answering our questions and being respectful. This is an important event because this election is about our education. We believe it is so important for students to have a fair say in our voices and to have our voices heard. We need to be a part of this decision because we are the future of Providence. And that's what today's all about. But we're not done yet. We have one more question for our candidates. We have been working to create our own platform with a version of the education system we feel we need. This platform is called The Schools Providence Students Deserve, and it is by and for the students of Providence. Everyone received a copy of this in their packets, so please take a look. I hope you support this platform as much as we do. We would like it if each of the candidates could come and sign the platform in front of us, showing your commitment to working with the students of Providence to improve our education. Could Claudia, Julian, Kente, Ruth come to the stage and stand by our platform? Okay. Michael Sullivan, would you sign this platform? Laura and Adrian, would you sign this platform?
I do want to say a preamble that they came to my office and I saw this for the first time, and they had the guts to ask me to sign it on the spot, which I would not do. But subsequently, read this platform and was so inspired and so impressed with the work that you've done that I am proud and pleased to do so now. Thank you.
Jorge Elorza, would you sign this platform?
I would gladly sign this platform.
Would you sign this platform?
Yes, nice job. Nice job to the audience. You're even getting the Republican to sign it.
First, thank you for signing the platform. Fred Smiley, would you sign
I just wanted to say, though, I think that Mr. Solomon should also sign this agreement saying that he will supply $250 million to the Providence schools over the next 10 years. Will you do that, Mr. Solomon? So Mr. Solomon will write to you that.
I'm happy to sign the platform with no strings attached.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming. And we look forward to working with you in the future to build the Providence School students deserve. Good luck to all, and we hope you had a good time.